I think the message is, as we know from recent history, not all the way back even to 1692, of course, but even more recently, of course, Arthur Miller wrote it because of the House of Un-American Activities Committee and Joseph McCarthy, who actually was separate from that because he was a senator. But I think that it's really important to keep in perspective that it's very easy to go into moments of hysteria, and that people tend to use their power to get what they want rather than go after the truth.
We like to think we've really progressed from that period of time, that we, oh my goodness, look how backward they were, we've learned so much since then, and we have, but the sad truth of the fact is, given the right set, or I should say the wrong set of circumstances, that kind of hysteria and paranoia and mob rule is not very far under the surface of all of us.
Parts of what happened back then, and this, scare about certain things that are religious or, maybe more right-wing, are still very current today, even though they might be in a different form, but they're still around, and that's why I think that it's very important for today, as well as in the 50s, 60s, and 1692.
I mean, these girls were like mean girls. Like, when you think about the bullying that happens in school and that sort of phenomena that happens, this mass hysteria of girls or boys, it doesn't matter. But for some reason, the first time that I saw the opera all the way through, we did it, I was like, God, they're like mean girls. They're like those mean girls in school that just bully everybody. Except for this, I mean, they're bullying them to the point of death.
I don't know that I see anything in me in Hale. I suppose watching friends or family go down a road that I know is wrong and trying to bring them back, and you can't. I think that's that's happened in my life, and I sort of use that as part of my. I use that in sort of a subtext way when I'm watching this unfold.
I sort of came in playing her very sympathetically and sort of very sad and very kind of and really tormented from the beginning, and we played around with different aspects of that, taking that to a little bit more bitter, a little bit more angry with John. So we played around with many different aspects of it, and so we sort of have found, the director Michael Unger and myself found what we think is a good balance of those two things, of the vulnerable sort of jaded woman, I shouldn't say jaded, well she is I guess, but the vulnerable woman whose husband has cheated on her in her own home, and then the kind of the ramifications of what happens then to the marriage and what happens to her.
With every role, you have to find something that whether it's a total hero, or whether it's somebody who gets everybody hanged, that you can relate to, and it's just so much fun to play the bad character, and you can bring out all these dark sides of yourselves that we all have, but to connect with them is really interesting. It
really was, I've never worked on a role as hard as I worked on this one. It really took the better part of a year to really put it all together. So that now, the work is done. Back when I was doing the work, I thought, oh, this is never going to come together. I don't know how this is going to work. But now that the work is done, it's there when I need it. My father was also a singer, and he performed the role back when it was first really, the show was sort of making the rounds. He performed Proctor in '76. By that point, I guess it had already been around 10 years, but still fairly fresh. And Robert Ward came to that production. Or either that one, or he performed it again later with a different role, but Robert Ward came to that production and signed his score. So then he saw me do it in college when I had a small role. He traveled to our college, and so he signed it again. And so this last time he was here, I said, well, why not make it for triple, and I'll have him sign it a third time. So I have my father's original score signed 3 times by Robert Ward for 3 different productions.